Welcome. Welcome to Creative Mind with Dr. Stephen Gilligan.
Welcome, dear friends and colleagues, our dear viewers.
From 66 countries around the world. Amazing, amazing. And from Encinitas, California, our teacher, Stephen Gilligan. How's the weather?
It's actually a great day here. It's only 10 in the morning, but it's supposed to be warm up quite a bit today. So it's probably good we're in the morning.
Okay, well, take it away, sir.
That's it? My God.
That's the Scottish version.
Yeah. Okay, good morning, or sorry, good day, everybody. Hi. Great to see you all. And this is wonderful. We've got apparently not 900 people registered. And as Richard just mentioned, more, I think, noteworthy to me is 66 countries. Wow. And it's noteworthy not only because that's a lot of countries, but I think, as you know, you'll see today from how I'm describing the creative mind work, that this is one of the most crucial, essential movement forward that we have to do, which is to be able to have these communities of mind that include all the different people, all the different cultures, all the different genders, all the different people of color into one conversation. If we don't do that, we're probably not going to make it. So I'm going to be talking today, exploring for the next couple of hours, this notion that we're on this long, amazing creative journey. And this cycle, you'd say it's been about 14 billion years. The planet Earth is sort of a Johnny-come-lately. It's about 4 billion years, but it's this astonishing unfolding and awakening of consciousness. And as is sometimes the case, we run into these huge pivotal crisis points. And I think we would all agree we're in one of those right now. I'm 66 years old. I grew up in San Francisco in the late 60s, where there was a whole lot of shaking going on. I don't think I have ever experienced a more intense last year or two in terms of all the things that are cracking, all the things that are breaking, all the things that are emerging. So I believe, and I imagine you would agree, that we're in this pivotal crisis point where the old way is rapidly fading, and we haven't quite given birth to the new way. And so there's a lot of chaos and a lot of confusion, and unfortunately, a lot of violence. So what we do at this point in our history is really a sort of a make or break. We either grow forward, or probably we won't be able to make it as a planet. So the creative mind work is one of many different traditions that really have developed to try to support, try to be part of the midwifing process. So that's what I want to explore with you today and share with you. Those of you who know me know I always like to begin with a poem, because I think really creative language is first musical and then poetic and finally literal. I actually have two readings. The first is not quite a poem, but it's a statement by James Joyce. Many people, of course, consider him to be the greatest of the Irish writers in history. And he has this to say. He says, "The world, I have come to think, is like the surface of a frozen lake. We walk along, we slip, we try to keep our balance and not to fall. And then one day, there's a crack. And so we learn that underneath us is an unimaginable depth. Sorry, got death in my mind. That's interesting. So I think that's where we've been sort of walking on this surface, and there's a crack in the ice. And so what do we do now? I hope through all of our efforts that we can move towards this poetic vision that is the second reading. This one's actually a poem. And this is by an American poet. Her name is Nancy Wood. And it's called All is a Circle Within Me. All is a circle within me. That's what our vision is. That's what our intention of the work is. So here's what she has to say. She says, all is a circle within me now. I am 10,000 winters old. I am as young as a newborn flower. I am a buffalo in its grave. I am a tree in bloom. All is a circle within me now. I have seen the world through an eagle's eyes, and I have seen it through a gopher's hole. I have seen the world on fire and the sky without a moon. All is a circle within me now. I have gone into the world and out again. I have gone to the edge of the sky. Now all is at peace within me. Now all has a place to come home. All is a circle within me. So that's what I want to talk about how that's our unavoidable challenge that we have in this part of our journey. And I'm going over here so I can turn on the, there we go. So these are the slides I'm going to be using. I don't know if you have already been sent them, but we'll give you these as a PDF file in terms of what I'll be covering today. So the general narrative of creative mind is that consciousness, not humans, long before humans, long after consciousness, is on a long journey of self-realization. It's sort of creating all these things to be able to realize itself. And as you know, as we will see that this journey unfolds through multiple evolutionary levels, and each one has this increasingly amazing capacity for both creativity and destruction. It's one of the most important things that I learned from my teachers, particularly Milton Erickson, that every pattern, every experience has equivalent capacity to support life or destroy life, depending on how you use it. As I noted, we're currently in the midst of a crisis for the ages, and we're sort of in this in-between, this betwixt and between state, where we're in the death throes of an old epic that's at least 500 years old, what I would call the isolated ego. And we're trying to give birth to this new epic of what we might call an integral mind, or a mind that's sort of a mosaic or mandala, in which everything is creatively happening within some unified field. So as I say, creative mind is one of the traditions, and we need many, we need hundreds of them to try to support that movement. So in the creative mind work, we basically have these three premises. Consciousness is creating reality. It's creating reality through what we might call these filters. And we'll talk about the three filters of most interest to the creative mind work: evolutionary forms, what I call the communities of mind, and then these invention holons that we call the generative holons that we can use to realize any dream that we have. And it's one of the amazing things about intelligent self-awareness. And that is another filter. So consciousness is creating reality. It's doing it through these mediums. And then this crucial third point is that what is being created is either held with sort of an open connection. It doesn't mean open connection, but whatever is there feels that it's in conversation. It feels that it's in giving and receiving. It feels that it's one part of a larger family. And when that happens in some sort of balanced way, good things occur. Unfortunately, this last epoch that we've been in really organizes unconsciously around isolation and disconnection and putting all the notion of self or power in one little part of the system that tries to control everything else. And so those are what we would call locked connections. And this is, I think, the major mechanism of sustained suffering, of sustained pathologies. And so what we're looking to do in the creative mind is learn what it means to open these generative consciousness states, not only to create positive things from there, but to be able, sort of like a tantric principle, I don't mean sex, a tantric principle of opening this generative space and then taking whatever is wounded or taking whatever is saturated with violence or toxicity, and to be able to transform it and bring it back to its rightful place as an essential resource in the creativity process. So that's what I want to focus on. So and I'll be talking for maybe close to an hour, and then I'm going to guide you through a group process, and then we'll do a follow-up where I do a demonstration with Dan Oil, who's Dan and I go back a long ways, and we'll do an individual demo to see how these ideas apply in actual practice. This artwork, by the way, you probably see it in all the creative mind. This is by our amazing artist in residence, Antonio Mesa. He's just doing an incredible job. But this first premise, I don't think we have to put too much conversation into it for our brief time. Consciousness is creating reality. Reality isn't out there. It's not static. There's no innate structure to everything. Consciousness is creating the world. The way that the creative mind emphasis on the creative mind emphasizes this is different, I think, than the traditional way, and certainly has been implicit in most of the work that I've done over the last 45 years, which is we've been pretty human-centric. You know, creativity is a human quality, that the world is sort of created by humans. And really, I think this human-centric position is really the source of a lot of the violence and destruction that is overwhelming us right now. So we really, I think, have this need and this calling to move out of a human-centric. And I'm not saying that we abandon human consciousness. It's a really crucial part of the process. But we realize something is coming through all of life, and consciousness is creating reality. So when we look at that creativity process a little bit closer, you could say, well, there's a lot of mediums, there's a lot of patterns, there's a lot of forms through which this sort of like the pure divine light, if you will, is hitting the stained glass windows and then creating this image. That would be a sort of a metaphor. Honors my Catholic upbringing. But the second premise is reality is being created through filters. So which filters are most important in creative mind? Well, the first is sort of unique. It's an evolution of the generative change work. We're really talking about looking at how consciousness is flowing through each of these different evolutionary spheres that are sort of nested within each other. And the basic 5 that we talk about in Creative Mind, and they become sort of a heuristic list that can be able to guide some of your work with individuals or groups. We go from spirit, I'm not talking religiously, talking more in terms of what Jean Gebser called the ever-present origin, what David Bohm calls the implicate order, what my teacher, Milton Erickson, one of his favorite experiences that he would have us explore in trance work is what he called the middle of nowhere, sort of a place where you were open to everything and anything. And so spirit, before time, before matter, before form, that's the source of it all. Spirit then begins to open into nature. Nature is a big term. We could talk about 14 billion year universe. We could talk about 4 billion year planet. We could talk about what's happening now. But spirit goes through nature. And then after some time, nature sort of opens to what we would call collective mind. Collective mind, you could say, starts in mammals, but it really begins to find its stride in terms of human consciousness. And the first human consciousness is collective. The first human consciousness is really not individual. It's in the culture, it's in the family, it's in the lineages, it's in the groups. And this is often what we would call the creative unconscious. And what begins to happen here is consciousness begins to be guided by mind. And we'd say, just as a simple definition, mind is this subtle awareness that can be able to imagine something and then create it. Probably most of you know the great cellist Yo-Yo Ma, really one of the most extraordinary creative mind practitioners, I think, on the planet today. And you may know that Yo-Yo's parents were from China. His mom was a singer. Her dad was a history professor of Chinese classical music. In the late 30s, they moved to Paris to study the relationship of Western classical music to Chinese classical music. When the Civil War broke out in China, they chose not to go back. So Yo-Yo and his sister were born in Paris, and he grew up in France. All of his friends were French kids who went to French schools. And then when he was, I think, 15, his father got a position, I think, at NYU. And so they moved to New York City. So Yo-Yo went to Juilliard Music School. But then after that, he decided to go to Harvard. And I was watching him in an interview. He said, "What do you think my major was at Harvard?" And the interviewer said, "I don't know." And he said, "Anthropology." He said, "I'll tell you why." He said, "I was this really confused kid. You know, I grew up in France, so I had French culture and French language." He said, but my parents were from China and we spoke Chinese. They told me, you know, every night about the virtues and the values of Chinese culture. And then when I was a teenager, I moved to America. So he said, I was a pretty confused kid. I didn't know who I was. You know, am I Chinese? Am I French? Am I American? He said, so I thought maybe I could figure something out if I studied anthropology, you know, which he got a degree in at Harvard. They said, because what you're looking at in anthropology is you're looking at how these sort of universal human patterns, you have this regional group, and they create it in a little unique way in this direction, right? And then another region, another culture, depending on a lot of things, move this common human experience in that direction. And you see that over a period of time, these little changes that open up begin to form these cultures. And these cultures are these collective mind traditions that are human, but they have a distinctness about that collective consciousness. So that collective mind is that's the first mind that we use. When you look at those, particularly historically, you see it has a lot of connection. So everybody in the traditional culture, you're really connected. You're sort of talking with each other, connecting with each other. Your connection to the group is much stronger than your connection to yourself. Right? And it's mostly unconscious. Right? That's the unconscious mind. Right? So when we're looking to create something new, or when we're on a threshold and we have to transform ourselves, we need this connection to this collective mind in some crucial way. The collective mind has its limitations. Everybody also knows that every group has jewels, has beautiful, sparkling dimensions, but it also has shadows. It can be very stifling. It can be very oppressive. It can be very rigid in certain areas. So out of that collective mind begins to grow this capacity for every person, every being in that community can have their own freedom, their own capacity to be able to envision the world and to create a life that is unique to that vision. That's amazing, huh? So we've got this individual mind. And a lot of things change when you start getting this individual mind, because people can have freedom. They can, how about we do it this way? Or I think this, or I think that. And so change really begins to accelerate very, 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 very fast. The value of the individual mind is also its greatest weakness, which is it can be able to represent things completely unbound to any time or any space or anybody. It is not locked into any particular position. In this freedom of the consciousness, you can go anywhere from anywhere. Anything can become anything. Oh my God. But this is dependent on the first step of that always being disconnection from the present moment. So self-awareness always has its first step in unbinding itself from the present moment. Right? So you say, let me think, there I go. Or, there I go. Or, so you can watch people when you're working with them, and you can see that most of their thought, most of their experience is moving away from connection, trying to set up this little virtual space, try to figure things out with the idea that someday I'll come back into connection. And unfortunately, sometimes that can be years or even generations later. So we've got ourselves in this little pickle, this Pandora's box, where with individual mind, we have total freedom. But we say in English, I have enough rope to hang myself. I can get into real trouble. Nowadays, you see that accelerating because most of our communication is not grounded in the body. It's not grounded in living connection. It's not connected to nature. It's not connected to community through social media and so forth. So we're just rapidly spinning into these multiple, in the United States, QAnon cults. And I think these are representations of creating consciousness unbound to any connection in the living world. I think that has brought us to the brink of extinction. So that's the challenge we are. And I think what really is needing to and wanting to be born is this fifth step, which is what we might call the integral mind or the creative mind. And in this mind, every individual has their unique way. Every individual is individuated, is differentiated, has their own presence, but is communicating and creating in a way that the circle of life, so to speak, is being realized as well. That's the notion of an integral mind. So that's why I say 66 countries here today, that perhaps is the most important thing of all, is that we're having these conversations of all these different individual cultures, all these different individual styles, with the intention of what is it to move to this next level of an integral consciousness. So that is the first filter, if you will. Consciousness is creating reality through these mediums, through these forms. One is it's going through spirit, through nature, through collective mind, through individual mind, towards integral mind. And so when we working with people again, we can see that in order to have sustainable creativity, a person needs to have their consciousness connected to each of those levels. And when they don't, then a lot of pathologies and a lot of ineffectiveness will occur. That's a big theoretical chunk that I'm talking about, obviously. So we need to have it in a practical way. And I hope you get a little bit of taste of that. You don't have to have these huge theoretical frameworks. It's just like connection. Are they connected to spirit? Are they connected to nature? Are they connected to collective? Are they connected to their individual self? Do they have a vision of connecting their individual creativity to all of life? So what we're really sort of looking at in this, 14 billion year journey is just these miracles where we come to these places where, from spirit, which we would say is not in time or space. So, even like the Big Bang Theory is that there was nothing in time and space. There was no time or space. And then what happened? You had this little burst that opened up, and is still opening up 14 billion years later. This sort of movement started opening up through nature, and then we got to sentient being, sentient consciousness. Isn't that amazing? So now these living forms not only are in connection with the territory, but they have these maps that they can create and use to be able to go beyond what the history is. Probably many of you have read this book by, what's his name, Harari, the Israeli historian who wrote this best-selling book called Sapiens, as in Homo sapiens, that's us humans. And he asked the question, what is it about sapiens that has allowed us in the blink of an eye, really very short period, maybe 10,000 years is out of 4 billion, to change everything on the planet, for better and for worse. And his sort of answer, like a Malcolm Gladwell sort of writes, is what sapiens has is the capacity to believe in things that don't exist. And I think that's really, really cuts to the heart of it. that things like freedom or things like democracy or things like evil or things like the devil or things like, whatever, is that we create these ideas and these consciousness forms that don't really exist in the natural world. This is the boon and the bane of human consciousness. Okay? So from there, you've got this emergence of not only does the culture have its own uniqueness, but every person in that culture. And this, to me, is really one of the great contributions of the West in the whole conversation. Every individual life has value. Every individual life should be afforded dignity and support. So we have that total freedom that comes with individual consciousness. But Viktor Frankl, who probably most of you know, who's the guy that wrote Man's Search for Meaning, was the Viennese psychoanalyst who was in Auschwitz for some time. His wife, his parents were in Auschwitz. They got wiped out. And he wrote this best-selling book about, in such a place, how do you find meaning to your life that will allow you to keep going and allow you your human development. And he used to say that he thought the Statue of Liberty in the New York Harbor was one of the most beautiful things that he had ever seen. And, it has an inscription on it. You may or may not know, it's covered up now. It says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your lonely, your huddled masses, yearning to be free. Send them to me, tempest tossed upon the sea, and I shall lift my lamp beside their golden door." Frankl said, that's amazing, but he said it's incomplete. And he suggested on the West Coast that there be a statue of responsibility. Because with this total freedom, if we don't have a responsibility to all of life, to our community, then this freedom can become very fast, can become very, 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 very destructive. So the Statue of Liberty and the Statue of Responsibility. So we've got these incredible bridges. So when we're working with creative mind, we're talking about intention. We're looking to find what a person wants to create. And then we're saying your capacity to create this is a function of your quality of connectedness to all of these different levels of your identity. Okay? And again, the default value in modern times is an isolated ego that is disconnected from an individual body just as a starter, but can't feel other people, doesn't feel nature as a living Gaia, doesn't feel a connection to ancestors, doesn't feel the sense of a complete spiritual, unbounded freedom that we have. So we say in the States, Houston, we have a problem, right? So we're seeing problems, persistent problems, as reflecting disconnection. We're seeing the development of healing and transformation and sustainable creativity as reflecting connection. So though that's one of the first mediums that we're focused on for connection. The second is what we call the community of mind. So we all carry this map, and generally it's unconscious, but we can see it in terms of how we create societies and how we create our everyday life. In terms of these maps that we have, are these communities about that includes things like ancestors, your family, different cultures, different colors of skin, different genders, people with different spiritual traditions, the social roles that you have, who's me and who's the other, who are my friends, who are my enemies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we call this your community of mind map. Okay? We are dropped into it from birth. So implicit, especially here in the United States, we are dropped into communities of mind where Black people are inferior, where Black people basically should not be treated with any sort of dignity, should be not denied the right to vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have communities of mind that we're born into where women are regarded as just objects to be exploited. You know, it was even maybe 15 years ago, I think, that most of these laws in the United States are state laws. But it was not possible legally to rape your wife, because if you were married to her, you were legally allowed to do anything that you wanted. So without a woman's consent, and this is obviously just one example of something that we're really, really having to address now, that in our sense of self, we have these circles of community, and we have all these patterns, and then we assign different values or different meanings. What does a Black person look like to you? What does a woman look like to you? What does a community, a just community look like to you? These are all parts of our community of mind, and they're a mosaic filter through which we know reality and through which we create our reality. So every one of these maps, starting to say, can either be open and in its generative form, which is every part of the map is valued. Is it seen as having infinite possible forms? It is given a place, a seat at the table, if you will. It is regarded as having a really important contribution to make. Okay? That's when the map is really working creatively to support life. But every map has many shadow spots in it. It has many spots where this part of my community does not get human connection, does not get human support, is not regarded as a presence that should be treated well. This not only creates terrible social pathologies, it creates things like institutionalized poverty. It creates things like institutionalized systems of unjust violence towards things like people of color. But it also is really, really cancerous for every member of that community of mind. You know, whether you're a perpetrator, whether you're a victim, whether you're somebody who just thinks it's not me, is that your creative power, your capacity to be happy, your capacity to serve humanity is dependent on each part of your community of mind, all the others in it, to let the light come through them. Okay? We are in a place where we are in isolated ego identity. And so for most of us, we identify with this part of the map. You know, I'm this white American male who lives in the all-white suburbs here. Okay? And from that, I don't feel that people of color are really in my community. I don't feel as a male that women are in me just as much as my maleness is in me. And that creates tremendous, tremendous problems. And we are at the end point of that. So, second part of creative mind is really feeling who your community of mind are, who are your ancestors, who are your children, who is your family, who are your friends, who is your enemy, what is your community, and feeling that's me. I am the community. And so, the challenge of creative mind is to take that sort of maybe noble, big idea and translate it into practical ways of supporting people in a session or in some limited form. That's the commitment of creative mind, is to take these ideas and to put them into practice in a way that they have practical value in that moment and in that time. Okay, so we have these communities of mind, and this talk a little bit about this third performance hold on. So we've got all these sort of this vertical axis of the unfolding through spirit, nature, collective mind, individual mind, integral mind. Then we've got the community of mind, in which we've got all the different people, past, present, and future, and beings that are in our community of mind. And then what self-aware intelligence allows, it allows you to, as Harari said, it allows you not only to believe in things that don't exist, but to invent things that don't exist. So now you say that's probably, we would regard that as a human need. It's probably not a need for other mammals. One of my great soul partners in the world is my dog, Marley. And Marley's needs are pretty much sort of getting back to balance. I need to sleep, I need to play, I need to be petted, I need to eat. That's pretty much, you organize around that. But human beings, I want to create, I want to grow the world. I want to create different types of communities. I want to create my life in a way that I can do this or that, and so forth. These require sort of these unique systems that we might call these generative performance systems, which is, how do you create a positive life? And there are a lot of ways that you can do that, but everybody needs this system. And everybody, in order to have creative success, they need this system to be in an open, positive space throughout the whole system. So in creative mind, we sort of take a modified version of the generative change 6 or 7 steps. We say there's this system that we work with, and thinking to create something, first you need to empty out and connect. Then you need to have a positive resonant intention. Then you need to identify who your resource communities are. Then you need to sense what are all the enemies and obstacles that are in play that you need to welcome and creatively engage with. Then you need to go on this journey where all of that comes together to create something new. Then you need to commit to bringing that into your practical life. Then if you want it sustainable, you have to commit to practicing creativity and practicing self-connection every day of your life. That's what we call a performance hold on. Okay. So this is the third medium, if you will, through which consciousness is flowing. And depending on the settings of that medium, each one of the mediums, depending on your connection to them, they will either create hells or they will create heavens. So what we look at, for example, is when a person says, what do I want in my life, is that when they start to speak to that question, you might see something like, what I want so you could see, as they step into the intention dimension of the hold on, there's a disconnection. Okay? Or they think, what really stops me is I have these family members who really are very, very critical of me. And so when I step into the obstacle dimension of my performance system, I disconnect and I lock down. Right? I've had a lot of people, when you say, what are your resources? Who can you invite? Who can you count on? Because that voice inside that says you're not enough, it's really speaking deep wisdom. You know, that you as an isolated ego are not enough to get the job done. But so we ask, well, who can you call upon to as resource to bring you harmony, to bring you protection, to bring you a sense of I can do this, to bring you a model for how it can be done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. A resource to say I can protect myself, I can say no, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've come across some people that as soon as you talk about resources, they disconnect. They cannot open to this idea or this possibility that it's okay to ask for support or that it's possible. So this is the third sort of medium, and, where you have a lot of dark spots, where you have a lot of locks. And when in those places that are locked, you will not be able to create a positive life for yourself or for your community. Right? That's the basic insight. Okay, so that's the second part. So consciousness is creating reality. Computer reality is, okay, sorry. So now we come to this third premise, and it's been implicit in what I've been talking about, which is each filter, you know, whatever you're using to be able to create your world, it has equal capacity. It's a double-edged sword. You can engage with it in ways that will destroy life and oppress life and create tremendous suffering. It has equivalent capacity to be able to really support and open up this beautiful, beautiful creative process. Okay, so briefly, we say your connections to these different mediums, they can be in sort of open connection, or they can be in closed connection. Okay. In the generative change work, we call these coach versus crash. I don't know if I'm going to continue with those terms in Creative Mind, where they're part of the under construction process. But if you look at this slide later, you can see some of the details about what I'm talking about as an integral mind, as a creative mind, as a mind which really is about connection. It's not my mind is here, it's not my mind is there, but mind is what my teacher Gregory Bateson called the pattern that connects. So it's the connection between different points. I've learned from having a Chinese wife and being in China a lot that the meaning of Chinese characters are never in the characters. They're in the space between the characters. And I think that that's the sort of idea of a creative mind that I think that we're needing to develop. So this is one of the practical foci of creative mind, what it means to support people so they can be able to shift their consciousness to this place of creative mind. And we have a strong confidence that if people use this always as a necessary condition, good things will happen. You can't predict exactly what's going to happen. But if you stay connected, okay, to the vertical axis, to the community of mind, to your performance whole line, is that good things will happen. So what we're looking to do as a creative mind coach is to help a person to do just that. My job is to help you sense what your vision is, what your intention is, and then help you to get into a place where you can succeed at that. Okay? And so what we're talking about here are these practical ways to help a person get into their best self in a sustainable way. So I have this notion of our coach mind. And again, I would just sort of, you can read on the PDF some of the distinctions there. The sort of the enemy of the people in creative mind, as it was in generative change, as it was in my early work with Ericksonian, is what we call the neuromuscular lock of consciousness. This is also called fundamentalism. It's also called spiritual constipation. That's a technical term. Okay? So as consciousness is coming through these filters, as it comes through the nervous system, is that we can let it flow through. That's what training in some meditation would be. That's what would be training in any creative performance. Get centered, feel the information energy flowing through you, learn how to join it so that you can have a creative outcome. But as soon as you have a fixed brain image that's kept into place by inhibition of breathing and squeezing of the muscles, game's over. And we call this neuromuscular lock. And we see that it can be in anger, it can be in fear, it can be in analysis paralysis, it can be in just the sort of the numbing of the body through alcohol or food or depression, where the system is basically going into lockdown. And when it's going into lockdown, that's the only thing it can create. Okay, and this is great, sets up what Freud called the repetition compulsion. So I may want to have a different body or a different experience of my body, but if I have these locked images that my body's always going to be in pain, which people with chronic pain do. If I have a locked image that in relationships, I am probably going to be treated badly, as people who have chronic relationship problems do, then this neuromuscular lock is that disconnects you from just about everything. And you're going to just repetitively create that negative, undesirable state again and again and again. This neuromuscular lock, again, I think is really at its end state. I think of it as a very immature version of individual self-awareness. My teacher, Milton Erickson, who was paralyzed when he was 17 for a couple of years, and he learned through inner work how to get his body to walk again, used to talk about, he said, people come to psychotherapy because they're rigid. And your job is to help them get unrigid. He would then talk about when you first learn to do something, you have a lot of tension and a lot of muscle pressure. So in some of his hypnotic trances, he would say, when you learn to write your name, you put so much tension and concentration in learning how to write your name. And you can see it in the child. They've got a lot of neuromuscular lock, and they've got, you could see it in the quality of their writing. So, but as you learn to do that over and over and over and over, your writing began to change and you began to feel this rhythm in it. Okay? So the developmentally, the starting point for any skill is neuromuscular lock, because you're having to like really concentrate and really just kind of force it out. This is where we are, I believe, in terms of this freedom of self-awareness. We're basically, I think, like 2-year-olds. And so we're really messing up. We're having tantrums every day. You turn on the TV. Yeah, I don't want to. He hit me. No, those people are bad. So developmentally, we're really, really, really young. And you would hope we would have some adult supervision to be able to support us. But I think this isolated ego is the starting point for the individual mind. And now we're seeing that the sense of, I just focus here, and what I think of myself is I'm, this person, and I have to control the world, and I have to just be able to get things for me, and I have to, do whatever I can. Is that dog don't hunt no more is the saying they have in Texas. That no longer is possible, because we see, over the past year and a half, nature is throwing up these viruses from who knows where. But nature, I think, is saying, you're not going to rape me any longer. You've been completely abusing me, raping me, pillaging me. I'm not going to allow it. So Gaia is starting to fight back. We've had, the Me Too continues in waves. We've had the Black Lives Matter, and these things are all related, I believe. They're all ways in which consciousness is saying an isolated ego that puts power and truth in one small position in the field is not viable at all. Okay? And that consciousness is created and maintained by neuromuscular lock. And it's really hard to release it, because it has, I think it is a type of addiction. And if you've ever struggled with an addiction, it takes a long time for you to recognize I'm addicted to violent, isolated ego consciousness. I'm addicted to it. I don't like what it turns me into. I don't like the fact that the quality of my life has really suffered. I mean, anybody struggling with addiction, in the, once you get past that initial euphoria phase, everybody is miserable, but they believe I can't stop. I can't stop. It's as bad as it is. The alternative to not doing the addiction is even worse. Okay? That's what we're facing. We're addicted to racism. We're addicted to violence against women. We're addicted to abusing the Gaia. It is getting to a place where we either surrender, get into recovery, or we die and take a lot with us. Yeah. So that's what Creative Mind is looking to do in a clear way, an enjoyable way, but one that also opens to the suffering of the world, and really tries to recognize there's a better way to go. The choices are not, I do the isolated ego violence, or I just collapse and die. That's what people usually have in an addiction. But we begin to realize what it means to have this sense of sobriety. Okay? And it starts to say with this notion of what it means to make a commitment to be a spiritual citizen. Okay? And you can see that You can read the PDF in terms of the sense of really needing every day some sort of commitment, no matter what. I commit to opening, to bringing open presence to each moment, to bear it all in witness, to touch through to the heart of something's trying to awaken in the world. And every day I practice the skillful means to realize the awakening. If you're interested in recovery language, there is a modified version of the Alcoholics Anonymous 12 steps, because I think the addiction idea and traditions have a lot of relevance to realizing, the first 3 steps are: we admit it to ourselves and others. And I always use the one, not drinking. Drinking is the classic one. We admitted to ourselves and others that our thinking, we were powerless over our thinking, and our life was unworkable. We came to believe that a power greater than our thinking could and would restore us to sanity. We made a decision to turn over our consciousness to that higher power as we best understood it each day. Okay? That's, I think, the sort of commitment that we need individually and collectively to really begin to allow this shift to occur. So I just, really want to say, when we do this, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's like, oh my God, I'm no longer drugged. I'm no longer under addiction. Life is so amazing. Right? And then, so what we're doing, as I said, in Creative Mind, we're looking to help people connect to that, not ideologically. You're not converting them, but you're just offering them a way to connect to themselves and to life where they can live the life they most want to have. Okay. So, you have one example, and then I want to do a group process. I mentioned, no, I didn't mention to the group here. There's a beautiful book by a Zen Roshi. His name is Bernie Glassman, and it's called Bearing Witness. And Bernie grew up in New York, and he, used to lead these meditation retreats. And he came to realize, going to a bucolic place, a beautiful place where you step out of the challenges of ordinary life and really go into this deep work, that's a really good thing. He said, but also, if we're really looking to awaken in a way that we are committed to the whole community of mind, is that it's good also to go into places where you feel the most disturbance and to be able to do some creative mind work there. So he started this in the 1980s in New York City, when during the Reagan administration, the streets of New York were filled with a lot more homeless people. So he said, let's get our group. There was, I think, about 20 of them. It was in the middle of New York winter. He said, let's go out every day. They would just had a T-shirt on. They were given $1 each per day, and they go out and sit in the homeless places and do what he called bearing witness. So you're just sitting, centering, you're just noticing everything that comes up. And then you do that for maybe a week. And then that's the second. So the first step is find something that is really touching you. Second, go into that place, open up a creative mind, welcome everything that's there, bear witness to it. Then the third, he's a cook, is take all those ingredients and create a healing meal for yourself and for your community out of that. So out of that, they created a bakery in Yonkers, Greystone Bakery, that was completely run by, and all the workers were homeless people. They're really successful, really good stuff, Greystone Bakery. And then they realized, well, there was in Yonkers, and they said, well, let's see, homeless people, they don't have homes, right? So we have to now create a housing community for all the people that are working. And so it went. About 3 years later, Bernie Glassman's Jewish, and he was in Germany and Poland. And he went to visit the Auschwitz camps. And he felt that same sort of vibration. And he said, this is where the next machine is going to be. That was a tough one. At 100 people, Jews, Germans, Poles, Catholics, Gypsies, gay people. And they met for 6 days in the courtyard of Auschwitz. And you probably know the Nazis were meticulous record keepers. And they had 4 people on the corners of the group meeting who 24/7 just read the names out of the books. That was an intense one. People came and they said, what do I do? Tell us what to do. And he said, my job is not to tell you what to do. It's to support you in bearing witness. And they had to do some special things where a couple times a day, at least, they would break into small groups, say non-Jewish Germans together, Jews, etc., and do this intense processing. Out of that, he developed the Order of the Peacemakers. And everybody who is ordained in the Order of the Peacemakers has a particular community that they are committed to serving. And they make their vows in terms of doing service and in the process of awakening to the communities that they feel drawn to. That's an example. Okay. Give you one other example. I was working with this wonderful man who really quite successful. He's from Mexico, and he came to the United States, and he's this incredibly interesting person who started this business up, and then he started getting severe asthma that was not allowing him to work. He asked me to work with him. Say, okay, so the asthma, we say, is some sort of symbolic expression that reflects some disconnection to some part of this guy's filters, if you will. So, okay, so when you go to work, is that you start developing this asthma. That's interesting. I would like to say to that presence that is creating asthma, welcome. Nice to see you. I really appreciate you entering into our conversation. And isn't it interesting that as you go to work, this constriction in your chest begins to activate and you can hardly breathe? Great. Let's get into creative mind. And as you begin to sense is that as I go to work, this connects. Just let yourself begin to tune. What is your connection to your community of mind now? Any family members, any ancestors, any friends? And he burst out crying. And he said, I hadn't really consciously remembered this, but we grew up in Mexico, and it was very, very difficult, but we had a really amazing family. And he said, my uncle, who was older than my father, when he was a young man, he went off to the United States, and he had this grand vision. I'm going to, be successful in the States, so forth. And everybody was so happy. And he came back like 2 years later, and he had failed. And what he said was, I couldn't deal with the racism. I just couldn't deal with it. And this guy, we'll call him Felix. Felix, my client, says, I remember that everybody in the family just sort of was so sad, and I was so confused. And my uncle and everybody was saying he shouldn't have done it. He shouldn't have, left and gone to this new place. So as this guy comes to the United States, and as he goes to create this professional success for himself, guess who starts to show up? All of his family community. And that sense of, if you try to make it in the United States, something terrible will happen and you will disappoint your family. Do you think that might create a little asthma? I think so. So rather than saying, okay, it's done, get rid of it, say, isn't that amazing that you are so connected to your family? Isn't that amazing? And I would just like to welcome your whole family into our conversational space here. Really, it's such a great thing to feel such a deep connection with your family. And wondering where you feel your uncle's presence now. Uncle had been dead for about 15 years. And you said it was over here. So now, as you feel that sense of centering, come back to creative mind. As you open and feel that loving connection to your uncle and your family, let yourself sense, as you speak, this sense of, I want to create my professional success. See what your uncle says to you. And his uncle, just started speaking to him in such a loving way about how much support and how much love he was sending to Felix. So just a small example of, as you go to create something new, in this case, I'm coming into a new place, I'm creating a professional identity. It will touch upon your whole community of mind. It will touch upon all these things in your body. And you will discover that there are a number of those places that have been in lockdown. They had to check out, they had to go into shadowland. If you can open a space where you can keep a creative presence and then identify each of those places where you had to shut down your connection to your larger self, it's a great, great opportunity for healing. It's a great, great opportunity. And this continued with him. And now he has conversations with his internal family and as well as his actual family back in Mexico. It's just a little example. We're saying, in order for us to move forward in any positive way, we need the support and the connection to all of the deeper parts of our identity. These are all these sort of levels, and spirit, unbounded spirit, nature, mountains, trees, oceans, bodies, communities of mind, cultures, ancestors, friends, individual vision that is able to set and manage and guide sort of creative goal making. And the sense that I'm doing this all in terms of a commitment to awakening myself and creating communities that work for everybody. Yeah. Is that great or what? Okay, so that's a little overview, folks. And let's just do I want to just give you a little bit of taste about what that might mean for if you were to do this, just a little taste. So to do this, I'm going to invite you to stand up, probably better if it's possible for you. And I'm just going to sort of walk you through sort of a movement through some of these, what we call the evolutionary level, so that you can get back, get down, reconnect to the deeper source of your being. So this will be about a 12-minute process. And to do this, first thing to do is get a good posture. Usually you want to have straight spine. Is really thinking first and foremost on the heaven and the earth axis. So we're thinking about getting a good posture, taking a few breaths, and the chi drop down into the earth, feeling the energy from the earth flow, breathe up through your body. You can imagine yourself like a tree. You feel yourself like the tree opening. You can open your arms like branches. You let your head just ease back, your shoulders open, your heart open, and feel the tree reaching and feeling its connection to the sky, to the heaven, to the stars, to the moon, to the wind, to the rain. Wow, is this great or what? The heavens and I are one. And then feel from heavens just this sort of beautiful luminous energy flow down, going through the crown of your head, almost like a spiritual shower, a washing off, a cleansing. And Aikido, we always knew this is misogi, the purification of the body and the mind by connecting it to the heaven and to the earth. And breathe all the way down. I think it was Duke Ellington who used to say, jazz is there to wash away the dust of everyday living. We accumulate so much dust. We take these processes and then flow down through the bottoms of your feet, through roots. Feel the roots and the earth extend. That's you too. They're connected through roots to the ancestors, deep into the earth. Let go. Release. Let go. Empty. Tai Chi, there's often an invitation to feel the chi, the life force, drop into the lower half of your body. The lower half, heavy, heat, on fire. Dropping the chi down through the earth. And from there, you can make a movement to draw that chi through the roots in the earth, through the bottoms of your feet. Begin to go back up towards heaven. I go down to earth and then move through the body. The human body is a beautiful bridge between heaven and earth. And feel again like the tree, open. I am the tree. Branches. I find it helpful. Relax your forehead. Roll back the eyeballs of your head and relax them. Open and drop your hips. Open and drop your shoulders. So you feel your true first mind is your heart, open to the sky. So it's a way to begin to cultivate the shifting from muscle-based consciousness to nerve awareness. The body is just a subtle body, a body of light, connected to the earth, connected to the ancestors, connected to spirit, opening into the heavens, body of light. So from there, you can do this little bit of meditation where you feel heaven and earth as your true axis. In that first awareness, I become aware of my verbal mind. Verbal mind. I open back up to the heavens, stand under that sort of spiritual shower, and just release my verbal mind. I might use the old Hindu meditation. The verbal mind is not my mind. This verbal mind is not my mind. Dissociation is just a releasing of attachment. I open to the flow, heaven, body of light, the roots into the earth. And feel what it's like to release attachment to the verbal mind. Who are you? And your verbal mind isn't plotting and planning. Such an addiction we have. Let it go. And then you can breathe again through the roots. Breathe as the tree of life. Roll back your head and your eyes, your shoulders. Open your heart to the heaven. Feel that luminous shower coming down. And now feel your body and your attachment to your body. Such an addiction. I release totally from my body. Not dissociating, just releasing. In the sense, the body is not my body. Release. The body is not my body. The mind is not my mind. Release. The body is not my body. Release. Feel what that's like to go all the way down through the roots into the earth, this body of light. Beautiful consciousness. And then to feel as you breathe up and go ascendant, again into the heavens. You can feel your connection to all of your ancestors, your culture, your family. Feel all the luminous jewels, beautiful generation, love and song. And also any rigid attachment, shadows you have with it. And this time as you stand under that heavenly shower, just move it through and let all the movement through all of your community of mind be luminous, open. The community is not my community. Just there, freely. Not your ego, not your property. The ancestors are not my ancestors. All is a circle within me, not my mind, not my body, not my community. Feel that beautiful rhythm, heaven, flowing with luminous cleansing through the body, mind, history. I am. I am. I am. And that's just a little taste of something we might do in different ways. And you feel from that deep, deep, deeper place, who do you really want to be? What do you really want to create? Let that question go all the way down through your mind, through your body, through your ancestors, into the deepest, deepest source. Almost like watching a pebble drop into a deep, deep, deep pool. It goes down, down, open. And then again, just a very brief version, feel as it opens from the deepest, deepest pool. Your job is to gently touch it and to move it through nature. Move it through the generation, to move it through the beautiful, luminous, diaphanous space. Move it through your body. Move it through your mind. Each of those different levels of your being doesn't trap it, doesn't control it, doesn't make it its ego property. And see how when everything is open like that, what it means to lift that into the world, like throwing a ball, like a child jumping into the world with that beautiful sound. So that would be a sense of a sort of a practice of feeling the different levels, releasing identification, sensing intention, and then exploring what it means to move through each of those different filters, but let them be luminous and light. Let every one of them be flowing, shifting, changing. Every moment, great creative, artistic expression. So at the end of each day, you say, that was such a great day. Oh my God, that was so fun. I just got to play with consciousness moving through my luminous being. Is that great or what? So sense what you learn, how to be with without becoming each of these different forms. And then let yourself give yourself a hug. You know, we've been sort of hug starved for the last year. I received my first hug in over a year, 2 weeks ago. So let yourself give yourself a nice hug and express, I love you so much. It's so hard being human. It's so great when we learn to love and relax and play. It's so hard we worry. We take things so seriously. I love you. Give yourself a nice hug. So that's a little taste. You could sit back down if you're standing. So everything you want to create in the world, everything that any community wants to create in the world, it requires a sense of open connection to all the different levels and all the different layers of the identification of who we are as a deeper self. There are many places that have been locked for a long time, so we've got a lot of healing to do. A lot of healing to do. These are some of the ways that I think it's possible to begin to do that. Okay. So maybe if we have time for a couple of questions or sharing, I'm going to ask you to just limit it to like 1 minute maximum because we've got short time and a lot of people. Richard, Oksana?
Hello, Stephen.
Yeah, hi. So I don't know, I can't quite see. I'm going to turn my slide thing off here. There we go.
Stephen, would you like to open up the questions to people watching on YouTube as well, or just to?
Well, I think it's probably good to have the video too. So we just have time for a couple. So anybody who's on the screen, anything you want to share or ask? And
raise your hand so that the engineer can see you, please.
Yeah, raise your visual.
Yeah, the hand in Zoom, the actions.
That looks like this.
And when we are waiting, there are a lot of gratitude in YouTube channel.
Oh yeah, it's so great. It's so amazing to read this.
Yeah, it's what happens after you ask people to share after a deep trance experience.
There's a delayed response.
Well, it's if you're Irish. Oh yeah, well that reminds me of another story. It's just back into it. All right, so I won't belabor the point. I know Julian, was that a hand or just a yeah? All right, so we got Julian Russell down. He's down at the bottom of my screen. Richard, can you see him?
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Julian. Hi.
No, the meditation was so deep that no wonder people have few words.
Yeah, I get it. I get that. Yeah.
We go to a level that's really beyond all the words. And then, so it's sort of somehow communicating that we've experienced that level without necessarily using words to communicate that we've gone to this level deeper than words. And so that's all I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
I've got many friends here and I can see that the same is true for them.
Yeah, thank you. And, you know, again, I think really talking about what the isolated ego as an addiction, you know, we have such a terror of letting go of the words. And yet, I think it's so clear on so many ways. That's the first condition for any sort of creativity, any sort of renewal, any sort of transformation. And so hopefully, you know, one of the practical primary goals of the work is to really make friends with all these different levels of consciousness beneath words. You know, we're taught against it. You know, one of the, you know, those of you who know me have heard me say many times, some of the probably the favorite phrase of Milton Erickson for his patients, for himself, for his students was, "I don't know. I don't know." You know, and when I knew him, I was 20, and he was God to me. You know, he was this old Yoda. And so I thought he knew everything. And so when I would see him say over and over, some people say, "Dr. Erickson, how do you do that?" "I don't know." And what has been your training in terms of saying, "I don't know"? What's the meaning that you have to that? And usually we're conditioned to say, never admit you don't know. So anyway, thank you. Maybe I'll do just a little taste. I was going to just add on a little bit of a personal individual demo to see how this might relate. So maybe we can do that in this last chunk. And then in about 15 minutes, you have any questions, be prepared. Daniel, are you here?
Yes, he is.
I'm here, Steve.
Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Whoops, not us.
Okay, dear friends and colleagues, please turn off your videos.
Turn off your microphones and your videos. And
Yes.
all of our friends and colleagues on YouTube, if you have questions for Stephen, he might answer them later if you write them down
In our chat.
in the chat. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to introduce Daniel Oil. If you don't know Dan, Dan and I go back quite a ways. Daniel lives in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and he does a lot of this sort of work and others. He brings a lot of music and art and all sorts of stuff. So I was thinking of who might be able to do a brief demo. I thought of Dan, and he graciously consented. So let's see what all the clocks have changed. So what is it now in Buenos Aires? What time?
It's 3:39 p.m.
Okay, so you're 4 hours now.
Yes.
And I am shit. I want to see if I can pin you, right? Pin the. There we go. Okay, great. Got it. So how's it been so far today for you?
Oh, it's been great, really. It's been a deep meditation, really, and all this ideas make so much sense to me. I think that as many times before you're putting words to things that are already in my system.
Yeah. So I say in the limited time we have, Dan, I just thought I would invite you and support you to the best of my ability for you to just touch into what would happen if you take some meaningful intention you have, and you brought it into first a connected version of one of these levels, and then brought it into a disconnected version, just to sort of sample the differences and really what's at stake. That makes sense?
Yes, totally. Yeah.
So I'm not interested in you sort of getting lost in some hellhole, but we had this notion of what we call just get a taste of it.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're really, really becoming aware that when we're stuck someplace, it's usually because one of these key filters is in lockdown.
Okay.
And then what we're looking at in creative mind is that we have the capacity to be able to make that shift within ourselves and within our communities. So we just did a warm up, if you will. So maybe we could just very briefly kind of go into centered, open, aware.
Okay, I better stand, I think.
Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, so if I was working with a client, I'd probably, give them more content support, but I know you have this capacity already. So let's get into coach state in whatever ways you have of your own. We see in the work, each person has their own way of centering, opening resources, releasing, being positively connected within oneself, feeling in harmony and open connection with the universe as a whole. And tell me how you do that, Dan, or how you find yourself doing that.
Just in a sense, what's going on inside of me and open what's going on outside of me. And feel connections like a network of connections. And I'm like sitting supported by the network.
Yeah, awesome. Great. So that would be some of Dan's resource space. So if we were working together, and there will be times in the work if we're working on his edge, that he loses connection. So you're asking the person to teach you how to help them get back into connection. And Dan, from there, I wonder if there was like one positive intention or goal that you find is a really meaningful for you, where you're working on your edge, so to speak, of moving more deeply into your life and into life with this intention. And I wonder what would be one you would select that would be good for this process.
I want to bring balance between my professional life and my deepest, innermost of self.
Awesome. And if I was working with Dan in one-to-one work, I would ask him a little bit more about that. I would probably ask him to show me a somatic model of physical posture and a movement to sense any images that would go with that. So we get the rhythm and the resonance and the repetition of that goal. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how resonantly connected do you feel to yourself and to that intention right now?
I would say 8.
Great. So, and just see if you can be really happy. Oh, that's great. My sort of inner being was able to really communicate with me something important and say, I wonder what I might do to maybe get it to a 9,
Sorry, I couldn't understand what you were saying.
Yeah. Thank yourself. Thanks for telling me that. And then think, I wonder if I can move that to a 9, from an 8 to a 9.
Okay.
And again, don't think it in your ego. Be the song, be the dance. Ask your deeper being Let's find even deeper resonance. And here you see what we talk about in the work as somatic models. It's a way to get an embodied, rhythmic, resonant, representational map. What happens there, Dan?
I was sensing the future when it is so, when it is real, and then I started. It wasn't conscious, but like bringing that future into the present moment and into the body.
Yeah. So I think it's intuitively obvious if Dan was holding that intention or the question, how do I create this deeper balance? But if he was holding that question in this somatic state, it would produce a very, very different reality than if he just sort of invites his somatic consciousness to begin to represent that with rhythm, resonance. Yeah. Okay. So you ready for this next step?
Yes, I'm ready.
All right. So what we're doing here is just a sort of a dipping, and just as a way, I think I know when I do it, it illuminates things so beautifully. So I've got the intention, and you've got maybe you find that somatic model. Now I'm going to ask you to explore, as you bring that intention, if you had a close connection with one of your deeper fields or an open connection, how does that make a difference? So let's pick nature. Start. So you feel, as I open my mind and my body to this intention, I want to feel a really open, positive connection to nature. To feel all of nature, the mountains, the rivers, the earth, the storms, the rainbows. They're me. I am them. They are my friend. And as you feel that, just allow yourself to bring that intention and the exploration of that intention. And that sense of a beautiful, positive connection to nature. What the mountains would say.
And it's so easy when I'm connected to nature.
What the plant medicines say. Yeah, awesome. Now, just for a taste, I'm going to ask you to imagine a hostile or a numb connection to nature. And I'm not asking you to get lost in it, just to say, what would it be like if I was carrying this dissociation from nature inside of me? Sometimes you do this, I do this, just trying to understand a client of mine too. So feel I'm dissociated from nature. Nature is not me. Yeah. Sorry, your body looks so different. And then in that sort of dissociation from nature, explore, really keep the same passion, the interest, the commitment, finding balance.
It is impossible to find balance disconnected from nature. For me, it's totally impossible to find any balance when I disconnect from nature. This is the source of imbalance for me is disconnection from nature.
Yeah.
And one of the first sources of imbalance is when I feel disconnected from the rest of the field. Yeah.
Well said. Well said.
My next thinking.
Okay, that's good to know, huh? And you probably noted, if you're watching Dan as I am, he has such a different body when he's connected, when he's thinking I'm connected and part of nature versus I'm disconnected. I mean, you look like some, straight white guy. So let's go back. Let's go back and say, okay, I just tried that for a second. Let me go back to my home. I'm a homeboy in nature. I am the river. I'm the mountain. I am the moon. They are my brothers, my sisters, my mothers, my fathers, my ancestors. And when I go, to create something, I do it with their support. I do it in a way that honors, respects all of nature. What happens there, Dan?
It's like something opens in front of me. It's like it's like a path that's easy to walk.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Let's try one more, okay? And again, this is more just dipping in. So coach state, center. Connection to intention and the somatic rhythm model. Now we're going to look at cultural and ancestral communities. All the people in your family, your people in your culture, and go 5 generations back, even more. Feeling that, feel I open to the jewels of my ancestors. I open to the beauty, the beautiful jewels of my ancestors. I feel them in circles, groups, their faces singing in the river. And as I go to create my intention, abound, I do it within this luminous community of mine, my people, my people. At any point you feel in any way restricted, not knowing, just open to that luminous field of your ancestors. And then let's dip. As you continue that movement, just now explore it with the sense of some sort of disconnection from your ancestors. I can't go into my ancestral field. Feel fear, anger, shame. And just feel you're carrying that.
Feel so low.
Yeah. And you might have noticed in the first part, there was actually an open heart, but something locked a bit below that from my vision over here. And then when he released open to the pain, it has a sort of a double edge to it, because there's certain grief for parts of the soul that are in those shadows. Is that right?
Yeah, and especially these days, feeling that there's part of my ancestry is really a shadow. I have no information and no connection.
Yeah.
Very much one side of my ancestry, and the other is just a big shadow. I want to go there to Eastern Europe and just merge and be in those places and listen to those voices, because I need to reconnect with that part of my ancestry.
Great. So you could see that this is a place where there's some shaking and locking in part of his sort of that soul history with the ancestors. And this is typical. This is where all of the really great work happens. You feel, my God, that's such power, incredible there. And there was like such shadows, but also, wow, something's calling. So now
it was because at the same time I felt like a huge luminous cloak, like they were all blessing me, and at the same time, but I cannot really take that because I don't know what I'm just getting. It was a double message that I was getting.
Yeah, that's where the sort of the unity of the soul has split. It's there in thousands of places for each of us. So let's come back to Coach then. And you can see that Dan's connection to nature is much more unbroken. His connection to the beauty of nature and all the different ways that you breathe, that you feel, that you envision, that you know that you're part of beautiful nature. And as you carry this really important intention of balance, come in your psyche to different parts of your ancestral. And so let yourself find the rhythms of nature. Find the breath. I know Dan is really into music and singing and drumming. And so you might bring in any of your connections to music and nature to begin to open what needs to be healed, welcomed, integrated. The pain, the sufferings, the joys, the jewels. So much. Such deep, deep. That's good. So that you can say, as I go to find balance, I continue to bring a sense of connection to all of nature, all of my ancestors. Every day I learn how to honor, to integrate, to heal, to connect. Tell me what happens there.
I started to sense there's a lot of work to do there.
Yeah.
Like with my ancestors.
Yeah.
It has been in my mind all these days, but now it has become a complete body realization. I'm sensing it in my body. I'm sensing it in my legs, and the back of my body. And at the same time, kind of I won't say a voice, but it's like a presence that's expressing without voice, we are here for you. I have a sense that we are here for you.
Yeah. Great.
And I'm just having goosebumps as I say that.
So maybe we could do one last thing, which is just to ask yourself to have a sense in doing all this and all the shakiness or stops and starts, what would be the end state in terms of, in doing all this, what I really want to be arriving at, what I really would like to be able to do that in terms of my integration, my human soul, wholeness. What would be a movement an opening to all of this? I bring all of this to create a new organization, a new wholeness. So if we, some of these places like Dan is touching, there could be a lot of deep stuff. So we want to open to it, but we want to keep coming back to who I am before my ancestors, where I want to be as a result of healing the ancestors. So, okay, so take a few moments, Dan. I'll just say, so we talked about getting into a positive state of connection to self and in harmony with the world, setting an intention and representing it verbally and somatically, then feeling the connection to these different fields or these different filters, to nature, to my ancestors, could be to complete unbounded spirit. I think that's the ultimate. But we find that in doing that, where the immediate resources are and where the places that through healing become even deeper resources. So, okay, if we stop here.
Sure. Yeah.
And anything you want to share, just, coming back into just being a member of the community and one of our teachers in the community, just anything you'd like to share in terms of your experience, in terms of what we're trying to learn?
I was surprised by how easy it was to feel the disconnection. So that it's not it's a well-known place, because they were just asking for it and I was there. Even though I feel it's very easy for me to connect, I realized how easy it could be to disconnect.
Yeah. And I think one of the most important things we're trying to cultivate is an affection for that. You know, we're so much into, oh, if I just get the right technique, or if I meditate enough, or if I have the right relationship, then I'll never be disconnected again. And we realize 1,000 times a day.
Yeah.
1,000 times a day. So it's what we're doing to respond to notice when we're disconnecting. As you say, it's so easy.
So easy.
And what it means to have deep affection for our human fragility and our human process of I'm here, no, I'm not here. I'm connected, no, I'm not connected. And to cultivate equanimity for it all is one of the most important things. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. See you around.
Yes.
All right. So hopefully it gives you a little bit of a sense of creative mind. And let's see. Do we have any? We're coming near to an end here. Any comments, questions?
Yeah,
Yes.
we have one from one of our YouTube viewers,
Okay.
Nella. How do we work with these are not my ancestors in the first part of the meditation, and then going into these are my ancestors, working with the levels?
Those are the two parts of the deeper truth, right? So when we get to these core identities, there is no single truth value that can apply to them. So we've done something in the trainings we call tetralemma, which is from the ancient Greeks and also still a contemporary Tibetan practice. And in that, you realize that on the deepest issues of truth, there are these four directions of truth. And the important thing is to be able to hold them all and sensing at every moment, which one do you sort of give more attention to. So one of them is I am not my ancestors, and the complementary truth is I am my ancestors. And then the third truth, I am both my ancestors and not my ancestors. And then the fourth, which is really sort of the wild card, is I am neither my ancestors nor not my ancestors. So when we talk about the isolated ego mind, what we're talking about especially is this mind-body process of muscular tension. You know, and what that means is I take a single truth or a single frame and I lock into it. Okay. For all matters of creativity and for all matters of deeper truth, complementary truth is a basic starting point. So if you're working like with pain control or trauma or your relationship to your family, your ancestors, if you only had this truth position, I am my ancestors, you're going to get pretty locked into them because there's a lot about you that is not reducible to your history. Okay. On the other hand, there's a lot about you that comes through your history. So we need to be in this both and sort of relationship. So the ego usually starts with, that's mine, my ancestors. You know, my daughter, who's now 29, you know, I used to say that when she was young, I only had 3 rules for my daughter. She'd be a professional basketball player, she'd get straight A's in school, and that she'd not date until she's 40. But Zoe, who happens to be my daughter, showed me every day that I had my list of rules about my daughter, was so much longer than 3, right? Or who my partner should be, or who my ancestors should be, or who my body should be. So this notion of X is mine is one of the major sources of violence and prolonged suffering. Make sense? So we're in this relationship. Well, this is my daughter, and she's also Zoe. It's like she's Zoe. She's like, you ever read that Kahlil Gibran poem about on children? Children sort of came into our lives for us to be able to support them. And we see how easy it is. My trauma, my this, my X. So that is one of the major ways that we disconnect from the flow of deeper consciousness. So the guiding principle in the work is be with it without becoming it. And at a given point, you may need where you are in your work, it may be the most important thing to say, these are my ancestors. I really got to come to terms with my family, because a lot of me is just so locked in it. But that at some point in the work, you will have to take a different truth position. I'm so much more than my family. So it's balance we're working with. Never a single map. A single map is the most succinct formula humans have ever worked out for violence. It's called fundamentalism. So we realize the deeper truth has contradictory maps, which when held simultaneously gives you creative release. That's my answer.
Thank you.
By the way, Nella, who asked, just wrote, thank you, I got it, and will never get it.
Some days are better than others, I mean, when we hold our ego mind responsible for controlling our lives, it's a fucking disaster, excuse my French. Because our ego mind, it's a politician and it's a buffoon. I mean, it doesn't know what the hell it's talking about. And it's always trying to be in control. It's always trying to get people to like you. So you need your ego mind, but you don't want to think that's myself. So you realize whatever I think is truth right now, check again in 5 minutes. Where we get our stability, because people think, well, I have to take a fixed position. That's how I get any sort of stable sense. Otherwise, it's total chaos. We get it from this. And that's what meditation practices teach us to do. Come back to breath, come back to movement, come back to rhythm, come back to connection until you feel all of life is flowing through me. It's just, all is a circle within me, all is a river flowing through me. Then we have a stability of a mindfulness that doesn't have constipation. And that's what we're trying to do is be mindfully present without constipation. All right, so I think we're done. As usual, my Irish ancestors ran a little bit over. That's me. That's not me.
There's one more question, Stephen.
No, I think we got to stop here, Richard.
Well, the listener asks if there's going to be any kind of a course, creative mind course, certification, coaching, or something like this. You're planning this in the future.
Who was that? Who asked that question specifically?
I made that up. I asked it myself.
It was in Russian.
Yeah, right.
But by the way, I just want to say, you may know, Richard and Oksana are my partners in Creative Mind, and it's just a wonderful journey with the three of us together. So I think that was a little hint to turn it over to them so that they can say, if this is stuff you want to pursue more deeply, come join us. We're doing this certification program. So go ahead, Richard.
Exactly. Thank you. This is the newest generation of Stephen's work, and for those of us that have watched the evolution, every step has been amazing, but this we think is really the best yet. It's an elegant model. It's not only vertical but horizontal, and Stephen will explain what that means. But what I really want to say is that we now are so pleased and proud that to be able to invite you to a complete course. Stephen has created a course, 25 days, 8 modules plus an introduction, which will allow you to study and learn this in real depth. I don't have time to speak more. It's
Is there a website they can check, Richard?
Oh, well, actually, that's a great idea. Yeah, it's the simple one, I guess, is simply www.5445.info.
That's the simple one. She's like embracing for the company.
It's on the frame of the YouTube
If
video, so you can see it.
You're watching us on YouTube, so on the frame just down below, look, and you can see this 5004.info. This is the website. And I just briefly want to invite all of you to this beautiful, amazing adventure, which is upcoming. We are starting in April with one day module. And then an introduction, and then it will be a 3 days module in May. And what is amazing about this course is, first of all, it's 25 days with Stephen Gilligan, 100%, and you know what I'm talking about. And the next thing is it's certification course. So Stephen will share all his knowledges and skills
and
demonstrate exactly for coaching and also for self-coaching applications. So this is also international course. So we will have participants all around the planet from different countries, and we will have international community.
Isn't that amazing?
And also, how it is in English, last but not least, least but not last.
Exactly.
So it's one more great thing about that is about this course is our team of leaders. We have 17 really experienced leaders who've been studying with Stephen for years, some of them for 20 years.
Yeah,
some of them for 40 years.
That's all we have time to say now, but we really invite you to take a look, to really see what Stephen is offering, and then come and join us. This is going to be a great adventure.
You can look at the website, and each module is presented, and I give a little 3 to 5 minute wrap on each of the modules. I really feel this is over half of the work is new. And I'm just so happy about it. And there's an old saying in English, necessity is the mother of invention. And it's necessary to invent stuff like this at this point, you know. And again, I don't see this as the one answer, but I see our necessary challenge is we either create thousands of different traditions and methods and communities to make this transformation from isolated ego dominant control mind to integral mind, we will not survive. I mean, I'm not trying to be melodramatic. I think you would agree we're hanging by a thread in some ways, particularly with the environment. So now is the time for all good men and women to come to the aid of their planet. So this is one way. And just want to emphasize the 17 team leaders are really, I'm amazed, just extraordinary team. Most of them are on the camera screen that I'm looking at. So everybody will be in their small group, and that's a whole journey in and of itself.
Because it's a practical seminar. You have to actually learn the skills. That means you have to exercise.
Yeah, those studies groups, practice groups, they're actually meeting after the workshops, after the modules, and they're gathering, they're practicing together to really, to really get those skills, those knowledges from Stephen into their own work.
If you really want to learn this in depth, this is where you come. And by the way, Stephen, you said about 50% of this was new. Well, and I think you mean from the 3 cutting edge modules in August. This is all this is all new generation, and it's evolving as we speak.
I mean, we started this last summer when the San Diego summer intensive, we call it Trans Camp, couldn't happen because of the pandemic. And it's just really amazing. And all of the seismic changes, earthquakes just continue to happen. And so like a lot of us are trying to listen, what's trying to wake up? What's trying to wake up? And how can we be able to grow and be part of the midwifing team to allow this next great epic in the unfolding of consciousness. So thank you all very much. Special thanks to Richard and Oksana. They are the masterminds behind creating all this. They're amazing. Huh?
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Thank you for
It's a pleasure. Yeah. So hope to see you. Take good care. Have a good Sunday. I guess it's near the end for most of you. It's midday here. A beautiful sunny summer day in my little beach town above San Diego.
Turn on your microphones, guys. Let's say thank you to Stephen.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank
Stephen.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Steve.
Richard.
Oh, gracias.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Amazing. Awesome as always.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Steve.
Awesome to
Bye.
meet you.
Have a great day, everybody.
Good job.
Take care. Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Hi.
Bye.
My God.
Hi, Oksana, Richard.
Mike won.
Awesome. Hi, Ali.
hugs.
Hi,
Hi, Eva.
Mike.
hi, Mike.
Hi,
Nice to see you.
Steve.
Hey, Mike. Hey, for those of you on the team, that's Mike there from China. You don't get to see him much. What are you doing up in the middle of the night?
Oh my God.
We're happy to see you guys.
Yeah. Mike is from Guangzhou.
Yeah, now it's midnight.
Midnight. Later than that, right?
Yeah.
3 in the morning.
Yeah. Ali's in Tokyo. You see, Takahito's here too. Huh? You see that, Mike?
2:25 a.m.
Можно галерею,
5 a.m.
чтобы всех было
Yeah.
видно?
Yeah. Thank you all guys so much.
Bye, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah. Dan.
Thanks, Dan, for the great
Bye-bye.
demo. Thanks, Steve.
Володя,
Bye, everybody.
спасибо большое.
Our engineers.
Nice to
It's
see you.
great seeing you guys.
Thanks, Daniel.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Love you guys. Bye.
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 Bye.